Hi, in this video we learn how to parse the followers of a particular user of Twitter. In this lesson we will discuss some advanced features of the program. So it's assumed that user is already familiar with its basic functions. Also we need a real Twitter account, so it must be pre-registered. Let's get down to recording a new project. Go to the homepage twitter.com. and log in there. In this video, we are interested in user page where we want to get followers. We go to his page. In your case, it may be someone else. To go directly to a page with followers, append followers in URL. The previous action of going to user page is superfluous, so it can be removed from the project. To do this, right-click on the action and select the option to delete the selected action. What we want to know about the user. First of all, it's the number of his followers. As you can see the number displayed on the page. In our case, it's 250. Let's use the tab Selected Element Properties for a detailed analysis of the element with the number of followers. We direct a cursor to it and view its properties. This is a link which contains outer text we need. 250 followers. Let's try to find this element in the Action Designer and get its outer text. In the end, after processing it, we want to get only the number. Right-click on the element and open it in the Action Designer. Action Designer found all the text strong and determines the element we are looking for just by ordinal value. Let's try to identify the element in another way. To do this, let's see how else can we identify this. We see that this element has a href property that contains the username. Let's try to find the element by attribute href, so we specify href in Action Designer. There are two elements with such an attribute. Let's see on the second one. The second element has the same attribute outer text with information about the number of followers. So even when changing the ordinal number of the element, we obtain the required information on the element of followers. So we found a method of identification. We turn to the creation of action. Choose the action get and select the name of the attribute outer text. In the attribute value, we see a value of 250 followers, the value we need. In the editor, we will place this value to a variable. After completing a word processing, as a result we obtain the number of followers. Let's add this action to the project. What should we do next? Knowing the total number of followers, we can start collecting their usernames. We see that the username of each user is stored in the element where his name is. His name comes first and then add username. Let's learn what kind of element it is by using the tab Selected Element Properties. Now let's enable the highlighting of not only important elements on the page, but also all other. To do this, we remove a tick highlight only important elements. After that, we have highlighted all of the elements on the page to which we direct a cursor. Search elements are framed in the span tag and contains information about the username in alt text attribute. Let's try to identify them in the Action Designer by using a new search criteria. Let's do a little more comparisons. All of these elements have the same class. Let's try to identify these elements by class attribute. Open the Action Designer and see that all the elements are found by span tag and differ only by the ordinal number. Let's try to change the search criteria by using the attribute class, which we previously identified. Begin the search. As a result, we found 100 items. All of them contain username of followers. This can be seen by hitting some of them and see username in the alt text attribute. Return to the choosing of action. Choose Get Alt Text. And add it to your project. Now we know the total number of users and how to identify each of the elements with username. It would therefore be logical to go to the editor of a project, create a loop in it, and parse information about follower usernames. But Twitter has a peculiarity. It displays on this page not all followers of the user. So in the Action Designer, we have seen that we found only 100 of them, but the total number is 250. The fact that Twitter loads information about other users as soon as we see all current. We can see this by scrolling down the page. Let's do that. Now it begins to load new Twitter followers. So followers can be parsed only when all of them are loaded. We can arrange a series of scrolling action using keystroke emulation. But we need to know how long we will need to scroll it down. That's a solution I propose. Every time we scroll down the page and new users are loaded, the height of HTML element that frames all the elements with followers will increase. So we can scroll until the height of this element increases, and then move on to parsing it. Now we are required to find this element and take the value of its height by using Action Designer. I propose to take advantage of tree of elements, which is a DOM tree. This tree includes not all the tags, but only those we want to see there. So you can enable or disable showing specific tags there. I suggest to hide buttons, iframes, frames, images, inputs, and other tags that cannot be framing in our case. This is most likely div tag. So add these tags into a tree. Now go down by this tree. When you hit an element of the tree, it's highlighted by blue frame in a browser window. We need to find an element that surrounds all usernames. It seems that we have found this element. But let's make sure. Open it in the Action Designer and get the value of its height. Then scroll down and see if the height changes. As we can see, the height has increased. The item is found correctly. Add this action to the project. Now creating of the project is completed. Go to the editor. And so what we have, after clearing cookies and go to the page to log in, we go to a page with followers. Then we have three actions that have been added by the Action Designer. The first one adds value of auto text of element that contains number of followers to the variable 0. We will process this variable to make it containing a number only, 250. Add the action of word processing, where the variable is inserted. And select the parsing using regular expressions. We write there a simple regular expression for parsing numbers. Any character from 0 to 9 in any amount, as indicated by an asterisk. The hard part of the tutorial comes, the creation of loops. We will need several loops. To create a loop we need 3 new actions. First one, set the iteration count. Then the logic action, to check reaching of the threshold value. And the last action, increase a counter value. One loop will emulate keystroke down to scroll the page. And we will check the height variation of the frame tag. The second loop will parse the value of username in span tags. We turn to the creation of loops. And the first action of initializing a counter. Initialize it by 0 and name counter index. Let's carry out an action getting username. We will need it in the end only. After initializing the counter value, we obtain the height of bounding tag and store it in a variable 2. Now add a new logic action, where we compare the value of the counter with the threshold value. Why we need the first loop? Since it's not enough to press down once to scroll down the page, we will emulate its pressing in a loop, for instance, 100 iterations. So in this logic action, we will compare the value of the index with the value of 100. And in case it's less than 100, we will continue pressing down. add the action of emulating keystrokes, which will emulate pressing down. Now we can connect a successful exit from the logic action with action of emulation. Next, we need to increase the counter value. Add a new variable processing action, where we increase the value of the index counter by 1. And then again, we check reading of a desired number. After emulation of 100 keystrokes down, we go out from a failed end of the logic action. Then compare the height to keep track of its changes. Let's duplicate the action of getting the height. We will save height changes to a new variable, new height. We need one more logic action to compare the heights of the elements before and after scrolling down. If the value is changed, then we continue scrolling. Now connect actions in the correct order. After getting of the height for the first time, go to the scrolling. As soon as we scroll down, update the height value and see if it's changed after scrolling. If the value is changed, it means successful exit from the logic action. We do one more scrolling loop, so go to the action of taking the height. In this step, the old value of the height is updated. Then we scroll again and retake the value of the new height until the height changes. Once a value has ceased to change, go to the parsing. Here we need another loop and action getting a span with username. I'm sorry, but these actions have to be connected another way. Because I forgot to update counter for scrolling. So connect it on one action above. Here is a rather complicated scheme of parsing turned out. We turn to the creation of a new loop. We cannot create a new counter for the loop and use the old one, index. Nevertheless, its value should be 0 prior. To do this, add a new action of variable processing, which will set the counter to 0. And we will go here from a failed exit of checking the height. We add one more logic action to the project, where we compare the counter with the total number of followers. The value of followers we store in variable 0. So if it's smaller, the followers are still there on the page. Then we take the value of outer text, username of follower. In the loop we will change the match number. So we go through all the followers. After taking the value of outer text with the username, we will add it to the list. To do this, add a new list to the project. It appears in the bottom menu. You can edit this list, but now we are interested in action list processing. New action will add a new entry to the list. Then increasing the value of the counter in the appropriate action. Once again we go to check the counter value. After adding all the followers to the list, it is failed exit. We will write list into the file. As a separator, we use a new line. Indicating the path with environment variable, project directory, and the name of the output file. The project is ready for debugging. We start debugging. Go to page Twitter, login, go to a page with followers. We see that the number of followers determined correctly, 250. Go on. Then begins the first iterations of scrolling. Let's set up a couple of breakpoints. Go to the first breakpoint. We see emulation of page scrolling. 100 iterations But such a scrolling is not enough for reaching a page bottom. We need to slightly modify the project. Stop debugging. First of all, change the action of keystrokes emulation. Pressing down not one but several times and increase the number of iterations. Again, start debugging. Go to the page with the followers and start scrolling down. At this time, the number of iterations is too large. An active number of iterations is 5, but page is already scrolled down. Stop debugging once again and change the number of iterations. Let's do it 20 instead of 200. Again, start debugging. We go to a page with followers, waiting loading. Set the value of the counter and start scrolling down. Not only Twitter uses these methods for loading additional information on the page, but many other sites. So you can use this technique out there as well. We got the button of the page and keep scrolling down. And so now we are at the bottom. The first iteration series is finished, and we get into the action of getting the head. Go ahead step by step. The head has changed. Therefore, we'll have one more iteration of the scroll. It is not necessary here, but it's because the user has not a lot of followers. On the page with a large number of followers, we would need more iterations. The second iteration series is over. Move on to the comparison. The value of the head is the same, so no more loading. Exit the loop and go on. In the next loop, we will collect all usernames. Set up a breakpoint on an action saving the list to a file, and go to a breakpoint. We fall into the last step. Click Next. The list is saved. If desired, this list could be sorted in order. That's all. Thanks for watching.